We're going to continue to read books written by Duncan Tanatu, who is the Latino author and illustrator we've been learning about. Today we're going to focus on The Feathered Serpent and the Five Sons. It's a Mesoamerica creation myth. So we're going to be exposed to the area they're talking about, Mesoamerica, review what a myth is, and of course be exposed to the Latina culture. We're going to learn a little bit about this feathered serpent here. And these are some of the images if you look it up. And it's pronounced, let me look at the pronunciation, Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl. In the back of the book, you're going to see there's pronunciations that help. Plus, I use Google Translate to help me with the pronunciations. Quetzalcoatl. So let's go ahead and find out where is Mesoamerica. It's not a place really of today. This was very, very long ago. So I pinned a map, a Google map. It's all these yellow pins here. And here is, of course, the country of Mexico. Here's the border. This line is the border between the United States and Mexico, two different countries, right? Of course, the red dot there is us up in Mechanicsville, Virginia, to give you a little frame of where we're talking about. So these yellow dots, if I zoom in, you can see the names of the place that used to be Mesoamerica. Okay, there we go. So we have Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador should be there. Let's see. Costa Rica. There's El Salvador right there. So it gives a little background of where this story is from, this myth is from. I like to sometimes pre-reading, I might look at the cover, I might think about what they're talking about. I also like to go to Goodreads. Goodreads, you can own an account, but you don't have to. I'm not signed in right now. But it gives you a little blurb of what the book is about, tells you what other people think about the book, and also tells you the genres over here. And this is a myth or a folk tale that is passed down to talk about something that has happened, a reason why, how something happened. So let's read it. Award-winning author and illustrator Duncan Tanatu brings an ancient Mesoamerica creation myth to life. Long ago, the gods of Mesoamerica set out to create humans. They tried many times during each sun or age. When all their attempts failed and the gods grew tired, only one did not give up. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. To continue, he first had to retrieve the sacred bones of creation, guarded by Metalachuli, lord of the underworld. Gathering his staff, shield, cloak, and shelled ornament for good luck, Feathered Serpent embarked on the dangerous quest to create humankind. After award-winning author and illustrator Duncan Tanatu brings to life the story of the Feathered Serpents, one of the most important deities of the ancient Mesoamerica. With his instantly recognizable, acclaimed art style and grand storytelling, Tanatu recounts a thrilling creation tale of epic proportions. Feathered Serpents and the Five Sons, a Mesoamerican creation myth, written and illustrated by Duncan Tanatu. Part of our pre-reading, of course, is to look at the cover and look at everything on there and try to get an idea of what our story is about. We know it's a myth, a creation myth. We have a guy dressed as a serpent with feathers of some sort, holding a staff, a dog with him. We have a bag of bones and a skeleton over here, a sun, and some maybe Aztec drawing on the side. Another thing we always want to do is make sure we're doing with our pre-reading is looking at our end pages. And I'm not sure what this is. I can make some guesses, and I'd like you to make some guesses too. To me, those look like dirt, maybe some sort of tunnels, These guys look like worms to me. So maybe throughout the story, we can figure out why the author has end pages like this. How does this connect to our story? So you want to make sure you're thinking about that. And we'll come back to that at the end of the story to see if we figured it out. Feathered Serpents and the Five Sun, a Mesoamerican creation myth by Duncan Tunatu. The publisher is Abraham Books for Young Readers, located in New York. Now, this book has some Spanish words in it, so that does give you a nice glossary in the background, and you'll see throughout the story I have Post-it notes helping me with the pronunciations. But on here, we make sure we're nice and focused here. The first one is Apanawaloyan, a place where you have to cross the water. Seweloyan, a place with much snow. Chikanawaloyan, a place with the 9 waters. Chimali, a shield. Etzquintlan, place of the dog. Etztepelt, obsidian mountain. At the bottom we have Mitlan, the underworld. And Mitan Tikuli, god of the dead, lord of the underworld. We have what a myth is. A myth is a story that explains a natural or social phenomenon, such as the creation of the world or creation of humans. It often involves supernatural human beings or events. Penquetlacoyan, a place where people turn into a flag because of strong winds. Quetzalcoatl, Quetzal means precious feather, and Cotl means snake. So Quetzalcoatl is feathered serpent or feathered snake, one of the gods in the Mesoamerican civilization. Tamim mean Olawan, a place where the arrows are shot. Tepeme Monam Miklan, place where the mountains meet. Te Yoyo Kualoyan, a place where they eat your heart. Timaliti, an outer garment like a cape. Tonatiuh, son or god. And Sholtol, a spirit dog. So let's get reading. We did all our pre-reading. Maybe these mountain ranges look familiar to you, and we'll talk about that also at the end. It is said by the elders that before our time there were 4 other Tanatus or suns. So each Tanatu is 1 year. During the first Tanatu, the gods created humans by covering sacred bones with mud. The humans they made were big. They were giants, but they were clumsy. They would fall and break. These humans turned into mountains. Well, look at this mountain range right here, the human drawn inside. And that mountain range shape might look familiar to you from another story. During the second Tanatu, the gods made humans with mud again. This time they made them small, but the mud would slip off their bones and slide into the rivers and lakes. These humans turned into fish. During the third Tanatu, the gods made humans by covering the sacred bones with corn paste instead of mud. The humans they made were the right size and shape, but they refused to honor the gods. The gods became angry and turned these humans into monkeys that lived in trees. During the fourth Tanatu, the gods created humans with corn paste again. This time they gave the humans hearts. The humans they made were kind and honored the gods, but they were lazy. They did not want to hunt or grow food. They spent all day singing and playing. The gods turned these humans into birds. The gods were tired. They did not want to create humans anymore. They gave the sacred bones to Mitan Tichuli, the lord of the underworld, to keep. So you see him walking away with the bones right there. But one god, the feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl, is kind of looking back over his shoulder. But Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, the god of knowledge, did not want to give up.
I will travel to Mictlan, to the underworld, to recover the bones. I will create humans one last time, he thought. He gathered his staff, his shield, his cloak, and his shell ornament for good luck and set off. The entrance to Mictlan was in a cavern past the sacred mountains. There were 9 regions Feathered Serpent would have to cross in order to reach the place where the Lord of the Underworld dwelt. The first region was Etzqueen Tlan, the place where the dog lives. There, Feathered Serpents encountered Shotl, the spirit god who helped those who were worthy of his aid. The god had to cross a large and mighty river. How will I reach the other side, he thought, but Shotl motioned to him to climb on his back, and the dog carried the Feathered Serpent across the water. So there's Shotl's. The second region was Tepe Me Mone Mictlan, where mountains crash into one another. How will I pass safely between them? Feathered Serpent wondered aloud. He placed his staff between the 2 mountains. See it there? Between the 2 mountains. This held them back, and he and Shotl passed through without harm. He then reached Itztepelt, the obsidian mountain. Sharp volcano glass shards cut anyone who tried to walk on them. So obsidian is the shiny black glass that's formed after a volcano erupts. But Feathered Serpent tied rocks to the bottom of his sandals. This should protect me, he said to Shotl. The god crossed the mountain without getting hurt. Then came Sewelloyan, the place where it snows, and everything was frozen. The Feathered Serpent wrapped his temalte around himself, the cloak made from a special fabric. Despite the snow and ice, Feathered Serpent stayed warm and walked to the other side. There's Shotl there helping him. The 5th region was Panquetlacoloyan, a place where the wind blew so strong it swept back whoever tried to climb it. Once again, Feathered Serpent relied on his staff. He held it tightly to steady himself and move forward. The wind was so strong, though, that it snapped his staff in half and ripped his temalte. The god then reached Tamin Min Oloyan, the field where it rains arrows. The Feathered Serpent held up his chimali over his head. He was able to pass through unharmed, but his shield was broken in half by the sharp weapons. There is chimali. The next region was Teyoyoqualoyan. It was a place where ferocious jaguars lived. We are going to eat your heart, they howled at Quetzalcoatl. You want my heart? Here, you can have it, said the god. He dug his hand underneath his breastplate and threw what was underneath to the jaguars. The jaguars dashed for it. When they took a mighty bite, they broke their teeth. It was not his heart the god had thrown, but his shell ornaments. After Feathered Serpent reached Apanowaloyan, a place where the god had to cross the river again, beneath the water dwelled a large reptile. Feathered Serpent and Shotl had to be careful not to disturb it as he swam across. Feathered Serpent was now in the 9th region, Chikanawalalayan. It was an area with 9 bodies of water and very dense fog. I can't even see my hands, exclaimed the Feathered Serpent. How will I find my way? But the god closed his eyes. He became still and listened to Sholtel's breathing. The spirit dog knew the way, and the god followed him. This page is my favorite illustrations. The fog dissipated. Feathered Serpent was finally in front of the god of the underworld. I'm here to take the sacred bones. I want to bring humans to life, he said. You have come from far away, and you have overcome many challenges, Feathered Serpent, but before you take the bones, you must pass one final test, said Mitantikuli. Take this shell and make music with it. That is easy, thought the god. All I have to do is blow. But when he took the shell from Mitantikuli, he realized it was a trick. The shell did not have a hole to blow through. Feathered Serpent was not ready to give up, though. He saw some worms in the ground. Ooh, worms in the ground. He picked them up and placed them on the shell. The worms dug a hole in it. Feathered Serpent took a deep breath and blew. When he did, the instrument made powerful music. Miktantikuli, god of the underworld, was reluctant, but he gave the Feathered Serpent the sacred bones. The god of knowledge, he knew, could not trust the god of the underworld, so he asked Sholtel, the spirit dog, to distract Miktantikuli while he escaped. Miktantikuli soon realized that Feathered Serpent was getting away. Stop him! He yelled to the bats in the cave. The gods ran and tried to shoo the creatures away, but while doing so, he failed to see a large hole in front of him. Thump! The god fell in. It was the end of the Feathered Serpent and the sacred bones, or so thought the god of the underworld. When Feathered Serpent woke up, he was bleeding and terribly hurt. He collected the broken sacred bones. He climbed out of the hole and made his journey out of Mitan. He then went to the place where the other guards dwelled. He smashed the bones into the powder and mixed some of his own blood with it. He asked the other gods to do the same. With the powder and the blood, Feathered Serpent made a paste, and with the paste, gods made humans again. It is said by the elders that we are the descendants of those humans that we were living in the 5th Tanatu, the 5th sun, the 5th year. Look at the shape of these mountains. I hope you recognize them. We're going to come back to that in a few minutes. Going back to our story here, we had done our pre-reading thinking about this set of end pages here and trying to figure out why the author, illustrator, Duncan Tanatu, put these end pages. Some of us had predicted that it kind of looks like wormholes and those look like worms. Did any of you catch where in the story this happened and why maybe this was important to the story? Discuss. Pause and discuss. Good, so maybe some of you picked up that when the Feathered Serpent got to the Lord of the Underworld, Mitantikuli tried to trick him and hand him the shell and say, you know, you've done so well in so many challenges, but you have to do one more challenge. Of course, at the bottom of the page, we kind of see the worms coming up. And on this page, it said, Feathered Serpent was not ready to give up, though. he saw some worms on the ground. He picked them up and placed them on the shell. The worms dug a hole in it. The feathered serpent took a deep breath and blew. When he did, the instrument made a powerful music. Look, he's a little frustrated here. The god of the underworld, Mitan, truly was a little frustrated. He figured out how to get past him. Look at the spirit dog, Shotel, with his angry eyes there, kind of barking at him. So the end pages here were kind of important to our story. This was a huge turning point where we didn't know if Feather Serpent was going to figure out how to get the bones back from the Lord of the Underworld. I love it that the end pages are really connecting. Remember, this author has won many Pure Belpré Awards. This one did not win any, but I love how he has a lot of Latina culture and things from the past. And we saw where this book was kind of taking place from the middle of Mexico down to Costa Rica. Also want to point out, let's see, on this page here, in our story called The Princess and the Warrior, we saw these mountain ranges, right? And these two mountains, this mountain is also called Sleeping Woman, which the name of that mountain is Etztachatl. And this mountain was Popocatépetl. And now in the story, the princess and the warrior, of course, the warrior, this volcano still erupts. And in that story, it said that it erupts to try to wake up his love of his life that took the potion, fell asleep in his sleeping woman. So Duncan Tonatiuh keeps pulling in more of the culture and myths, even interwoven throughout other stories. In this back of this book also, a lot of times additional information is written, and I took some notes on each of the 5 sons so I can remember of the first son is where the gods tried to use the bones with mud, but they came out too big and they became mountains. The second Tonatiuh, the second son, the gods made humans with mud again, but they made them smaller, but they slipped in the river and they became fish. The third Tonatiuh, the third son, the gods covered sacred bones with corn paste. They were the right size, but refused to honor the gods and turned them into humans. And the fourth corn paste again, but gave them hearts, but they didn't want to grow food and they turned into bones. And of course, the fifth son is finally when the feathered serpents got the bones back from the Lord of the underworld. And humans were made again. Also found this really interesting, the author's notes, and I'm just kind of briefly going to tell you what it says in here. You get a lot of information from the back of the author notes. Don't skip that. Read the book jacket when it gives you some information. It kind of leads you into the story, which I did on the Goodreads. It's the same words as that was on the Goodreads. And read the author's note. And I'm just going to sum it up in here, what I learned from here. That this story, this Mesoamerican story of the feathered serpent, they think is over 2,500 years old. But sadly, some of this history was lost and destroyed because when the settlers came, the Spanish and European settlers, they ended up destroying lots of temples because their belief system was different and customs were different. So they kind of tried to erase some of their culture. But through drawings and different things, they pieced together what they could, including this story of the feathered serpents and the 5 sons. It's kind of interesting here. Also found out by reading this that the feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl, is not just a god in history in their past. It was also an historical figure, a priest king. So that's kind of interesting that, he has become a god over time in the stories, but he was actually a priest god in the Mesoamerican era of time. So really interesting facts. Feathered serpents and the five sons.